guys. This is Charles Seaman with the Master Passive Income Multifamily Podcast. And I'm here with my co host, Erika McNew. And we welcome you to the first episode of this show. Erika, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Charles. I'm excited to be here. So I will tell you a little bit about how I started off. So I was born and raised in Daytona Beach, Florida. So I'm a Florida girl through and through. I actually moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2014. And when I moved to Charlotte, I was a server at a restaurant in Florida, so I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And so I Googled how to become a millionaire. And the Google machine said that it was through real estate. So I said, okay. So I went and I got my real estate license in North Carolina in 2015. I signed on with Keller Williams, which I'm very grateful for. Only company I've ever been with. And in 2015, I got started in residential sales. I had no business background, no sales experience, didn't know street names or neighborhoods, and had no friends or family in the area. So I was like, real estate's going to be perfect. So that was a really fun journey getting started. I actually ended up specializing with for sale by owners and expired listings because I just didn't know anybody else. And so I did really well with those. After specializing with for sale by owners expired listings, I started specializing more with investors and investment properties. I used to joke if a property had structural damage or missing HVAC, they were going to sniff me out and find me. Should have started buying properties then, huh, Charles? So
Absolutely.
that was a good branding play that I did there because a lot of people that had issues with their properties, they were embarrassed. And so I created a branding of you can call me instead of calling that guy on the postcard, and I'll get like 40 of those guys to compete for your property. So I started picking up a lot of properties for investors. I created a really great investor database. I did that from 2016 to 2018. I still work with residential investors to this day. So I have some amazing clients that will forever be in my life. I've helped them build a lot of wealth, and we're going to continue on that journey together. Since 2018, I actually stepped back from residential real estate sales. I had an opportunity to build out a vertically integrated company. It's actually a hemp company, so cannabis. It's federally legal. And so in 2018, built out a retail and manufacturing company. We became vertically integrated with that company from 2018 to 2019. Was working, those 120-hour work weeks, lots of fun. And in 2019, I expanded that company into Central Florida. My mom and my brother actually own the second delivery location for that company. In 2020, when COVID hit, we thought, oh, what a great time to buy a building. So we actually, as a cannabis company in year two, we went through 4 different banks before one finally said yes, and we got an SBA loan on a 15,000 square foot industrial building in 2020. So that was a very neat experience. I will say I learned a lot from the investor side of commercial real estate. When we went under contract on that property, we did not have the down payment. So we had to come up with $365,000 in net profit within 4 months to close within 6. And we did. So that was a grind and a hustle and an amazing, amazing experience. Built that company all the way till 2023. I stepped out of that company and I replaced myself as COO. I actually stepped into full-time commercial sales, back into real estate sales where I belong. It's been phenomenal. I started off immediately specializing with industrial and larger multifamily. I currently work with an institutional investor searching and locating for 100 to 200 door apartment complexes. And I work with several larger multifamily investors that are phenomenal. So I also wholesale single family residences. I've done tax foreclosures in Central Florida. And so from that experience, I recognize there's a lot of people in distressed situations that could use help, and there's a lot of money to make. One of those properties we picked up in Florida, we picked up for $800 and flipped it for $24,000. Not too shabby. So there's a lot of opportunity in that. I'm very good with locating off-market properties and working with distressed property owners. So I enjoy what I do a great deal, and real estate has been an amazing journey, and I'm excited to continue on and see what we do next.
Erika, that's definitely a lot packed into a short period of time, but I really think there was a lot in there. Being able to have a diverse background and move to a different city and kind of get experience with all these different things, which one excites you the most?
So it's funny you say that. I recently put together my 10-year business plan. And this way, I don't get distracted. There's a lot of opportunities when you're talented. And it's easy to take an opportunity and end up going 12 months in the wrong direction, right? So I decided to do my 10-year business plan. What I found is the multifamily acquisitions is something I'm very passionate about. When you're able to acquire housing at scale, you're able to help a lot of people at scale. So I love multifamily acquisitions. Um, Now starting to raise capital to get in to certain funds that I believe in, and so I'm very, very excited about the opportunities around that, and also helping people with the wholesaling. So tomorrow, for instance, I hopefully will be saving someone from foreclosure, and I'll be wholesaling that property. It could be potentially $30,000 for me, and I help her avoid a 7-year mark on her credit. So I really enjoy the wholesaling and I really enjoy the multifamily acquisition, and mostly because of impact.
That's definitely awesome. I think that's something a lot of us can relate to. Um,
How about you, Charles? Tell us about you.
yeah, well, thank you. So I come from the other direction. I come from Brooklyn, New York. Hopefully, the accent's still there. Moved down to Charlotte in 2019, and my story into real estate probably started a little bit different than most. It wasn't something that I was actively looking to get into real estate. It was more so, what I tell people is I was young, dumb, and broke, and I needed a job.
Real
and,
estate.
and because of that, it spurred me to develop an interest in commercial real estate. I was very fortunate to work for a guy who was a serial entrepreneur. He still owns many businesses and different properties. And in that role, I got to learn about business and how it works and how commercial real estate works. So, of the different industries I had exposure to, commercial real estate was always the one that gravitated most to me, and it piqued my interest. One of the things I like about it is the gamesmanship. There's a lot of back and forth. It's almost like a human chess game, and sometimes you have to outmaneuver your opponent. So I enjoy that side of it, and it's something that's always intrigued me. So fast forward, I was at that job for about 10 years before I started dabbling into single family and wholesaling, and I took a couple of courses. I hired a mentor. Realized after a few months of doing that, there were two things that were pretty apparent. One was that I wasn't good at it, and two is that I didn't enjoy it. And that led to me taking a step back. I still continued working my day job. Fast forward another year, and then for the first time in my life, I've heard the term syndication. Well, let me rephrase that. I've heard it before, like in terms of like television and like the mafia, but not in relation to real estate. So going out there and learning that you could actually raise money from people and close these deals got me intrigued because I said, okay, I can do the deals I want to do. I can use the skills I already have, and I can use other people's money because I knew that that was the thing I was lacking, which is really why I started in single family. And after spending some time learning about that, what I realized is a lot of the skills I'd already learned over the past decade plus at my job were easily transferable because they were things that would apply here anyway. So I took those skills and I took that desire to go out and start finding deals. And then in 2019, I made the jump and just went full time into syndication, and have been doing that ever since. So that's a
Very,
little bit about me.
very cool. What would you say is your favorite part about what you do?
I definitely like the back and forth negotiation. Maybe it's the natural New Yorker in me. I like to have a little back and forth and a little fighting along the way, but it
Yep,
makes the day interesting. You know, I, I
absolutely.
I always like not having a boring day. Even though you're doing the same thing over and over again, there's different circumstances and new experiences that you can learn from. If you're doing the same thing day after day, eventually you get bored.
I agree completely. Very, very neat. So you like the chess game of it, and
I
I
do.
agree.
I very much enjoy that, and I
Mhm.
get the impression that you might like that too. Uh, I feel like you have to be in this business. So for anybody listening, if you're brand new, get excited about that. Get excited about the negotiation because that's going to be part of it, and it's going to help you get good deals along the way once you get proficient at it.
And I've taken courses on negotiation in particular. If you feel like you're naturally a good negotiator, it might be something that you don't think you need to take a course on or read a book on. However, it's really, really good to get that confirmation of what you do right in negotiations and also just a different perspective of what you could improve upon. So taking the courses for negotiation was really helpful for me too.
Right. You never want to discount learning. Even as you become advanced and you become proficient, the ones who stay that way, they're always learning anyway. You're constantly growing, because if you're in the same place now that you are 5 years ago, you probably haven't done much. You eventually become stagnant, and the methods and the techniques that you knew may not be as effective.
Absolutely. Yep. What are some of your favorite books on the multifamily space?
You know, I don't have a lot of good recommendations on multifamily specifically. If I was going to recommend one or two, they'd probably be the classic Dave Lindahl books, Emerging Markets and How to Make Millions in Multifamily. I feel like those are the two that a lot of people tend to read.
Yep.
Um, in terms of personal finance, I probably have a broader selection there, but I've always been a Kiyosaki fan, so I tend to prescribe very closely to most of his beliefs about finance. How about you?
That's the first house that I wholesaled. Um, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad book was on the kitchen table, and I thought that was so interesting. And I absolutely, I got to meet him at an event one time. What a brilliant man. I'm actually a very big fan of Gary Keller Williams, right? So Millionaire Real Estate Investor book is one I love, and I go back to and use that truly as a manual. So I've learned a lot of lessons from that I think will hedge me and protect me in the future on investments. So I love that book, and you can get like a leadership edition with the little tabs. So very neat though.
So, are there any nuggets that you would share with the listeners about from that book that you recommend? Anything that really impacted you that helped change your real estate investing outlook?
Yes, one of the biggest things I would say is I like creative financing. I like doing seller financing. I'm an advocate for doing it the correct way and making sure everybody is hedged and risk is mitigated in that situation. But I love creative financing, and something I'd always look to do is get into as many deals as possible with no money in. And when I read Millionaire Real Estate Investor, it really, really it helps you take a step
Erika,
back
if you're
and
talking, I can't hear you.
analyze. You probably should always want to get in at 20% equity on any given property. And it's all about debt pay down. So, like trying to get in on a volume of properties with no money in versus making sure that you're just taking it slow and steady and getting your 20%. Millionaire Real Estate Investor book, one of the things I learned, the biggest lesson I learned from that book that I think is really important is I love creative financing. I'm a big believer on utilizing seller financing options. Even I did a lease to purchase subject to the mortgage on my first property. And so I've always looked at trying to get into as many properties as possible with as little money down as possible. And after reading Millionaire Real Estate Investor book, it really advocates for take a step back, and you want 20% equity in every single property. And the goal is debt pay down. The goal is to pay the property off. And so that changed the way I looked at real estate investing. I was always trying to move too quickly and get into properties with no money down, which you can absolutely do at volume. Is it the best decision for you long term? Is it a sustainable investment strategy? Probably not. And I'd rather have something sustainable long term than a house of cards. So that book really helped me slow down and make sure that I'm getting into properties right, purchasing right, and have the equity I should have.
Erika, you touched on one of the really important principles of real estate right there. You need to have equity in these properties. And I think it's a mistake a lot of people make, especially when they're starting out and they see so many different things that are enticing. It's like, you see so many different programs and podcasts, and they say no money, no credit. And
Yep.
it's true, you can do that. But eventually, you're building that house of cards. And what happens with that house of cards?
It's going to topple in an economic shift. It's
Yeah.
coming, and there will be one. So
Yeah, so keep that in mind. That's great advice. I think one of the best things you can do in real estate is make sure you have equity in these properties, and it's probably a mistake a lot of people make. So you can still use seller financing, you still use creative structures, but make sure you're being smart with it so you're not over leveraging yourself. That's going to be really key.
And just for an example, so the first property I got in on was that lease to purchase subject to the mortgage. We were very, very intentional to pay down the debt on that property as quick as possible. We actually paid that property off within 5 years, a little under 5 years, because we had fully paid off that property. And mind you, We acquired it, created financing. Because we had fully paid it off within that time frame, we were able to put a note on that property to acquire the $1.725 million commercial building. We would have never been able to get the commercial building with the SBA loan for our business had we not been very intentional to pay off the first piece of property. So when you really take debt pay down serious, you're creating a lot of collateral and leverage in your life to move on to the next property. So it's something that we learned definitely the right way. Very grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting you mentioned that. So maybe that's something you can share about. So with that property, when you acquired it with creative financing, talk a little bit about the structure and what you did there.
Yes. Oh, we actually did a lease to purchase subject to the mortgage on that first one. The investor that we bought that property from, we actually found him on Craigslist. They're not all scams, come to find out. He actually has been doing the room rent market for like the last 10 years. So this guy is brilliant. He's an accredited investor, makes a lot of money at Goldman Sachs on his trading job, and then does this room rent market on properties throughout the country that he picks up via foreclosure. So this was a property he had picked up via foreclosure, and it needed a lot of work. The garage door was not working. It had $40,000 worth of wood rot, you name it. And so in order to get the deal done, we came in, we bought that property at $180,000 on our lease to purchase agreement. We were able to put down around $40,000 that we had saved for that property. And then we immediately came in and we did the renovations. So learned a lot in the renovations on that first one, that's for sure. We fixed the garage door, fixed the wood rot. We renovated the bathroom, the master bedroom. So we came in and did a lot of work on that property, a little bit too much. And however, by the time we paid that property off and we recorded it, we went from the property being worth 180 to about 450. It's currently worth probably about 500. So that was a large amount of money to make in that time period. We're very fortunate that we happened to purchase in Charlotte, North Carolina. Great area, that's for sure. And very lucky that he let us in on a deal where otherwise we couldn't have got a bank loan. So it gave us an opportunity that we needed, and then we utilized that opportunity for the next one.
So it sounds like there's a couple things you did right there. The first is you bought right. So for anybody, that's the single biggest thing you have to do right in real estate, whether it's single family, multifamily, any type of real estate, because that's the mistake you can't correct. You have to buy right.
Absolutely.
Then it
Absolutely.
sounds like you had a clear plan and you executed the plan. Sometimes there's some bumps along the way, but you got it done, which was important. So that also went right.
Yep.
And then you also made a smart selection with the market because you chose a market that was on the upswing, and that gave you some extra value in the property simply by having the growth of the market coincide with the plan you were executing.
Absolutely. And like I said, we found this guy on Craigslist, so just going through and seeking out these opportunities, you'll be surprised what you find. There's plenty of opportunities out there in any market. We are very fortunate that we happen to find him. I'm looking at another opportunity purchasing from him property over in Arizona right now. So there's connections, relationships matter a lot.
Relationships definitely matter. I agree, and that's something I totally echo. Every one of my deals has been relationships, so I totally agree with that.
Yep.
For anybody who's brand new, in single family, what you might find, and I'll let Erika speak to this because she's more experienced there than I am, but I find a lot of deals there can be transactional, where on the commercial side they're almost all relationship based. Do you agree with that?
I do. Absolutely. Commercial is completely relationship based.
Yeah. So it's a different ballgame. I say this jokingly, but there's also a lot of truth to it. Most of the deals that I've done have usually stemmed from lunch meetings or drinks. I've been out with a broker or a seller, whoever it may have been, and we kind of worked the details out, and then I just went home and put them on paper.
Yeah, exactly.
And most of my deals usually get structured that way. So, it was actually the reason that I moved to Charlotte because I knew that moving to the market I wanted to be in would give me a competitive advantage. And different people do things differently, but I have an old fashioned approach, and I like getting together in person as often as I can. And I know that if I got together in person more and more with brokers or sellers or whoever it might be, I'd be able to eventually win them over and get deals done. So keep that in mind. You got to find your competitive advantage.
Absolutely. And I've really have nurtured relationships along the way that didn't give me any immediate benefit, and I did so with no agenda. And by just nurturing relationships that I felt were important along the way, like for instance, right now, as I look to raise capital for this syndication in Florida, I am reaching out to some of these people, and they're very happy to hear from me, and they're taking it serious. And that's because of the nurturing of those relationships over the years. They know that when I come to them, I have something of value. So it's really cool to see those relationships start to turn up now in some of the bigger projects that I'm doing.
So how would you say those relationships have helped you as you scaled up to bigger projects? So do you still find the same relationships that you were working with 3, 4, 5 years ago are serving you now?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I actually one of my original investors that I had the opportunity to work with is a very big name in the Carolinas and in Florida. And he is currently connecting me with other people that are accredited investors. We actually have done, I think now, about 7 or 8 fix and flips together with me helping him purchase and me helping him sell. So we were having a really good time on fix and flips with the single family residences. And now, as he's even scaled with his businesses, I've scaled more into the multifamily space. And so he's coming along with me and he's ready to invest in any opportunities I might have in that space. So I've known him now for 9 years since the beginning of my career. And then, within my KW commercial uh, community, I've been in that since 2022. They are phenomenal. When I first came to them, I was like, hi, I have this company. We need down payments for properties. I have no idea what I'm doing. Help. And they taught me how to put together offering memorandums, and they taught me, how everything works as far as working with investors. And 28 of them actually had pulled together a syndication fund and were willing to be the investors for the down payments for our properties. So I found that all within that community of people that I've known for years. So very, very grateful for some of my relationships. How about you, Charles?
That's awesome. Um, yeah, for me, a lot of the relationships that I've nurtured for the last couple of years still serve me. So for me, there's usually, my relationships generally get categorized into so many buckets. I have broker relationships because those are bringing me deals on a regular basis.
Yep.
I have, you know, investor relationships because being that I'm in the syndication space, there, we need investors to go out there and capitalize these deals. And I also have usually lender relationships. So those are my kind of my main buckets that I shoot for at this point. So there are some relationships that will be more transitional, just like anything in life, right? So you have people that are going to serve a purpose at a point in time, but you may eventually outgrow them, and vice versa. So always figure out what you need immediately, but then also, as Erica said, look ahead. So she just put together a 10-year plan. So start with that end in mind. And for some people, especially if you're just starting out, a 5 or a 10-year plan may be a long way. That's okay. You don't need to have all the pieces identified at the beginning, but you want to identify what you need most immediately. And then you want to have that big picture in focus so that way you can reverse engineer it and figure out who you need to get there. Oftentimes it's who, not what. Keep that in mind.
Very, very true. One of the things I love about the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book is exactly what you're saying of categorizing people in buckets and having your work network. And I think that while I have maintained my client relationships at a very high level for years, I'm very, very meticulous in ensuring that my work network and my vendor partners are at a season in life that aligns. Because so often, a vendor partner can be phenomenal on the first couple projects, and then things start to go left, and if you don't catch it quick enough, you're not in alignment in this season. So I love that you put it that way about the buckets. That's exactly how it's you should be categorizing them.
Well, we want to thank everybody for listening to the first episode. We'll be back with plenty more for you in the future.